Hi guys, this is gsmnow.com and I'm here with the LG G4 for a full and detailed review. This is the 2015 LG flagship and this model was announced back in April, and we also previewed it the next day following its announcement. The price tag, in case you're wondering, is $600 off contract in USA at a few of the carriers there, and on contract $200 on a 2-year contract. As you can see, we got here the red leather version, or better said the Marsala color. Apparently this hue is called Marsala, and we're dealing here with a version that's bundled with a gray cover that you'll see later on. So this is the LG G4, famous for its leather back and for a seriously cool back camera. As far as the design goes, know that there are two versions of the phone, one with genuine leather at the back in about 3 color versions: black, Marsala and brown, and then there are the plastic cover versions in white, gray or gold. The thickness here is 9.8 millimeters. The predecessor, the G3, measured 8.9 millimeters, and the G Flex 2 that we tested relatively recently, 9.4 millimeters. So this is actually thicker than the G Flex 2 and the G3. It's also slightly curved, as you can see. At its thinnest point, it measures 6.3 millimeters. At the thickest, it measures 9.8 millimeters as far as we know. Okay, so now as far as the weight goes, the LG G4 weighs 155 grams, which means it's heavier than the G3 that weighed 149 grams, and also pretty close to the LG G Flex 2 that weighed 152 grams. It's thicker and heavier than the predecessor, but it feels light in the user's hand, and certainly lighter than the iPhone 6 Plus, for example. And now let's talk about the leather a little bit. This genuine leather has a very nice feel, excellent grip. My only worry here is the fact that you can get stained. For example, if you have ink on your hands after writing with a pen, you may get ink on it and it's hard to remove. Also, it takes 3 months to properly manufacture this leather. It's cow leather. It's the top layer of the skin of the cow, and it's also made using vegetable tans, bio-eco friendly. It's got nice looking stitching here with special wires, the same ones used in making luxury handbags. It looks like a football, like an American football ball, thanks to this pattern right here. It's very comfy and sits well in the user's hand because it has an ergonomic curve that makes it perfect, easy to use with one hand, and sits excellently in the hand. It's also 3 millimeters longer than the G3 and 1.5 millimeters wider. And I have to say that this cow leather at the back has 0.001 micrometer pores in order to breathe properly. Now let's analyze the sides. At the front, we got the front camera here. Next to it, there's the notification LED here. We got the earpiece and sensor at the top, and the bezels are reasonably small for the current year. There's also a dotted pattern that you cannot see probably, but if you look closely, you'll be able to see it here on the sides and at the bottom. Now we go to the back. At the back, you can find the main camera, the laser autofocus system. There's also the LED flash, and below it there's the RGB sensor, and then there are the volume buttons and on-off button between them with excellent feedback, and they're placed smartly so your finger can reach them easily. And finally, there's the speaker at the bottom. Now let's remove the back cover, see what's below it. Pretty easy to remove. As you can see, we got the battery here, removable battery, and the overlapped micro SD and micro SIM card slots right here. Since I said that we get an extra cover, which you saw in the unboxing, this is it. It has a very interesting pattern. It's a great case. It's made of plastic, but it imitates metal. It has a 3D effect, and it catches light nicely, as you can see. It's slightly slippery. It's diamond shaped if you look closely, and it has a nice pattern. Okay, so this is pretty much it with the second cover that comes bundled with this phone. I cannot guarantee that all the G4s get the same treatment. Let's put the leather back on. Okay, and return to the analysis of the sides. So at the top, we've got the noise cancelling microphone and the infrared emitter, while at the bottom we can find the audio jack, another microphone, and the micro USB port. Overall, this is a very comfy and elegant handset we're dealing with here. I cannot say it's better than the Galaxy S6 or the Galaxy S6 Edge, but rather something else. I have to say that it's a pretty premium device, seeing that it has this beautiful leather back, and frankly speaking I like this design better than the one of the iPhone 6, so let's see what Apple comes up with. See, this is a very elegant phone. So overall the design is something we like here. We appreciate the uniqueness of the leather cover, and now I want to talk to you about the hardware. Inside this phone, LG decided to go with a hexa-core processor, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 808, clocked at 1.8 GHz, and this one has 6 cores, it's a 64-bit processor, and its GPU is of the Adreno 418 kind. They wanted to avoid the problems of the Snapdragon 810 and went with the Snapdragon 808. The screen you're seeing here, this crisp and bright screen, is a 5.5 incher with a resolution that's Quad HD 2560 over 1440, and the panel is an IPS Quantum. Inside the device you can find 3 GB of RAM, 32 GB of storage, and the microSD card slot can support theoretically up to 2 TB. Of course, such cards will be launched in the future. At the back we got a 16 megapixel camera right here with a single LED flash. At the front, 8 megapixel camera, a huge improvement from the predecessor. On the connectivity side we got Wi-Fi 802.11 ABGN AC, so we're fully covered. There is Bluetooth 4.1, NFC, GPS, GLONASS, micro USB 2.0, infrared, slim port 4K, and LTE category 9 that offers speeds of up to 450 Mbps. In the section we like to call others, we got Dolby acoustics, accelerometer, gyroscope, proximity sensor, compass, barometer, and finally we have reached the battery section. This model offers a battery capacity of 3000 mAh. It's a lithium-ion unit, is the same capacity as the one of the LG G3. On paper, the battery offers 20 hours of talk time or 440 hours of standby, and in our test that involves HD video playback in a loop with Wi-Fi on and brightness of 50%, let's see how much we achieved. We took it step by step, and finally we got to a duration of 8 hours and 55 minutes of continuous HD video playback with Wi-Fi on and brightness of 50%, which is a serious upgrade from the LG G3 that only offered 5 hours and 6 minutes of continuous playback. Still, we're below the Galaxy S6 Edge that offers us 10 hours and 47 minutes of playback, and below the Galaxy S6 with its 9 hours and 49 minutes. Still, we beat the HTC One M9 and its 6 hours and 9 minutes. And also we beat the LG G Flex 2 and it's 4 hours and 7 minutes. This duration of 8 hours and 55 minutes, it's okay, it's actually good, but not revolutionary or innovative. We also did a PC Mark test. PC Mark simulates continuous usage. We kept the brightness at 200 lux and we achieved 5 hours and 19 minutes. Once again, the Galaxy S6 beat us, achieving 7 hours and 6 minutes, and also the Galaxy S6 Edge beat us with 6 hours and 41 minutes, and the HTC One M9 again defeated us with 6 hours and 9 minutes. Still, we beat the LG G Flex 2 that scored 5 hours and 7 minutes. Overall, I would have to say that this handset's battery scores below other modern flagships with Android, but not by very much. Still, the battery can easily help you achieve 1 day of medium usage, even 1 day and a half, and it's certainly an improvement from the LG G3. The charging will take 1 hour and 43 minutes, which is pretty much okay. The G3 required 2 hours. Still, the Galaxy S6 remains the champion with 1 hour and 10 minutes. Also, the HTC One M9 is beaten by this phone because that one charges in 2 hours and 20 minutes and this one in less than 2 hours. Okay, this model comes with support for Quick Charge 2.0, but it's not bundled with a special charger, it only has a stock charger. It also supports wireless charging, but it needs an extra case for that, a special case. Overall, the battery is a jump from the G3 and it's still below other modern flagships. I keep playing with the settings area for good reason. Let's go to the battery and power saving area where you can see your stats, time remaining, you can see your battery usage and patterns, the apps and features that have used the most, and also the battery saving features. They are not complex. You can restrict apps in the background and you can turn the battery saver on at 5%, 15% or immediately if you want to. Then there's something called Game Optimizer that adjusts video quality in games to save juice. These power saving features are less impressive than the ones offered on the Galaxy S6 models and even on the HTC One and 9, so I expect it a little bit better from LG. Now it's time to discuss the acoustics. As I said before, we got a small back speaker right here, and let's go to the music player. I recently played with the LG G Flex 2, or better said 1 or 2 months ago, and I reviewed it, and I have to say that the interface is pretty much the same, with a material design touch, organization in songs, albums, artists and genres, as you can see right here. And now let's actually listen to a tune. Turn up the volume. Okay, now some conclusions. You saw me playing with some settings. Before that, I have to say that the volume is quite loud, the bass is very good, the sound is natural, we got good high notes, the sound is clear, there's no distortion and no muffling on a flat surface. As I said before, if you look at the settings, you will find here audio effects that include pitch and speed, very funny to play with, and equalizer settings like normal, pure surround, quad beat, bass booster, treble booster, vocal booster and custom that offers you 7 channels to play with and sliders. So these are pretty much the options you can play with. Then there's auto stop and cloud accounts if you need that. Once again, this player adopts material design UI. And now the headphones, the latest generation of quad beat from LG, they're quite the lookers. If you look at the wire, they remind me of the pair of wires you use to lock your boots. So usually boots comes with wire like this to hold them together in the winter. That's at least the pattern that I'm feeling here. The wire is pretty solid, it's also tangle free, and the only bad thing about the headphones is the remote. It's made of cheap plastic and it looks it, it's quite big. Anyway, the headphones themselves have big buds, as you can see. I cannot exactly figure which one is the left or the right, there is no writing here as far as I can tell. They're comfy, they sit perfectly in the ear, they're also very loud, they have an excellent bass and a clear and natural sound. By the way, this device is also able to play hi-fi files, it's also bundled with a hi-fi file or two, so that's nice. Let's also check out the FM radio app, provided that we can find it. Here we go, this is the FM radio, with a pretty nice looking interface, kind of old school, and options like scan stations, add station and auto stop, so that's fun to use. Okay, so enough about the headphones. Remember that excellent bass all around, huge volume and very comfy, but the remote feels plasticky and cheap. We also did a test using a decibel meter, and once we find the gallery we can check it out. The decibel meter showed us a value of 88.1 decibel at the back of the phone, and at the front of the phone 87.8, still very impressive. The LG G3 got to a maximum level of 87.4 decibels and we beat it, and we're also below the Galaxy S6 but only by a bit. That one scores 89 decibels. We beat the HTC One and 9 and it's 86 decibels, and we are far beyond the LG G Flex 2 and it's 82.9 decibels. Overall, very good acoustics, a nice interface for the player, so nothing to complain about here. It's time to discuss the display here. This display is a 5.5 incher, it's an IPS Quantum, and according to LG, this model has 25% increased brightness and 50% increased contrast. It also has a resolution of 2560 over 1440 pixels, and it has 56% better color accuracy. And I have to say that according to LG, the liquid crystal will align vertically here in order to get more light through. LG has calibrated the screen to the DCI standards, which is Digital Camera Initiatives, so it's perfectly set up as far as the colors are concerned. There is no video player here, you're going to have to rely on the gallery. So let's play it. I have to mention that this gallery is pretty well stocked when it comes to codec support, so that's nice. So let's play our usual test sample. Here we go. You can zoom in while playing. And features here include screen ratio, subtitles, share, trim, details and settings. And screen ratio goes like this: best fit, original size or full screen. And then we got settings like play on lock screen, screenshot, play speed, flip to pause or brightness. You can also move around the video with a preview window available, and you can use the famous Q slide feature to move your video around and continue doing other things, other tasks like sending an email or browsing the web as you keep watching your tiny little video. Now, as far as the actual viewing experience goes, we've got accurate colors. We also have wide viewing angles, vertically and horizontally. I remember the G3 had problems with that. Well, no longer. The G4 solves any problem of that sort. So accurate and vivid colors. The screen is bright, it's very clear thanks to the very high resolution. The black is obviously not as deep as the AMOLEDs, the screen is not very reflective, and the contrast is not very impressive in full sunlight. We obviously did some tests, and this device offers RGB striped pixels. These are the pixels under the microscope, RGB stripe kind. And we also did a lux meter test. This is the machine we used to measure the brightness, and it showed us 432 lux units. We beat the LG G3 that had 343 lux. We're also pretty close to the Galaxy S6 and it's 475 lux. We beat the HTC One M9 and it's 362 lux. And we also beat the LG G Flex 2 and it's 266 lux. Meanwhile, we are pretty far away from the performance of the Galaxy S6 Edge, and it's 933 lux. Still, the screen is bright enough, the images look crisp, movies look okay, and also games. Aside from the contrast, I would call the screen very good. And with that in mind, this is quite a high jump from the LG G3 to the LG G4, and also an about 30% jump from the LG G Flex 2 to the G4 as far as quality is concerned. These are some of the best colors I've seen and also very realistic. The display has its very own settings related to the home screen, and in the home screen area you can select home or easy home with an easier interface for beginners, for kids or for the elderly to play with. Okay, so home screen, easy home or home with bigger icons and fonts. Going back to that area to analyze smart bulletin that shows extra info like those from LG Health, calendar, music, smart settings and smart tips. Then there's the theme you can change, wallpaper, screen swipe, home screen looping, then lock screen that includes effects, wallpaper, shortcuts and a nice weather animation. For example, if it rains, you see raindrops dripping all over the screen. We got home touch button options like button combination, color, and you can hide the touch buttons, these ones here, in certain apps so they won't bother you in games, for example. We got font options, size and type. We got brightness with a manual slider and an auto option. And also we have screen timeout, and finally this section with motion sensor calibration in case you need to tweak that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I have to say the screen is very good, no objection. It's very bright and it has very accurate colors. Now we have arrived to the camera. This is a 16 megapixel shooter here. The sensor size is about almost 1/2 of an inch, which is very impressive. There is an f1.8 lens here. It's the biggest aperture on a smartphone in the modern market, and it catches 80% more light than the LG G3. Meanwhile, the HTC One M9 has an f2.2 lens and the Galaxy S6 f1.9, so this one with f1.8 wins. There's also something here. This is the LED flash, and below it there may seem to be another flash. It's not a flash, it's a color spectrum sensor. It detects the ambient light for better white balance and more realistic colors. Then there is the famous laser autofocus that we saw on the LG G3, if I'm not mistaken. It allows us to focus faster even in low light, and if I remember correctly, the concept goes like this. There is a laser light coming from here towards the subject, and then the phone calculates the distance and time it takes for the laser to come back, measure the results, and gives you a proper image depth and image brightness. We also have to mention the improved optical image stabilization. It's optical image stabilization 2 with 3 axes this time for this camera. And now let's see what we got at the front. At the front we have an 8 megapixel shooter, which is quite an increase for the 2 megapixel shooter of the LG G3. It supports gesture shutter, opening and closing your fist. It has f2.0 aperture. The Galaxy S6 has better aperture, f1.9. And back to the camera at the back, it has a single LED flash, optical image stabilization 2. It ISO goes to 2700 as far as I know, and the sensor is of the 16:9 kind. Finally, time to check out the user interface. Going to use this castle here, trigger the camera, opens up pretty fast as you can see. In order to avoid spoilers, I'm going to show you the modes. So let's check out here the interface. It's not hugely different from the interface of the LG G Flex 2. There is a fast camera startup and there are 3 main functioning modes. We got simple, auto and manual. In the simple mode you don't have to do anything, you just tap the screen and the picture is taken. In the auto mode there are some things you can do. You can tweak the flash options and you can use the front camera shortcut. You can activate modes like auto, panorama or dual, and you can play with options like HDR, on, off or auto. The aspect ratio 16:9, 4:3 or 1:1, and the video resolution 4K, Full HD, HD or slow-mo, which is 120 frames per second in 720p. Then there is the voice command, the timer and the grill. Those are all the options you can play with in the auto mode. Then there's the manual mode. LG promoted this as a DSLR replacement, which is quite a bold statement, I have to say. So in the manual mode, or better said the pro mode, we have the following features. We still have the flash options, front camera shortcut, but you can now also do capture in a RAW format, and you can play with a DNG file that's about 20 mega in size. More details included, and it's more fit for editing on the computer. Now here we got options once again for the aspect ratio, voice command, and also for these orientation mechanisms, for this sort of crosshair that allows you to take better shots. We also have a histogram, and then we have the most important options available here. At all time you'll be able to see on the screen the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO and the exposure, and also the white balance shown at the top together with a histogram. We got white balance options. They can be set up by using this slider. It goes from 2400 kelvins up to 7400 kelvins, or you can select auto. Then there's the focus option. It goes from macro to landscape, also with auto. We got exposure from -2 going up to +2, ISO from 50 up to 2700 as said before. And then we got the shutter speed, which goes to 30 seconds or the 6000th part of a second if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and then there is this option here that from what I understood can either keep your settings or tweak them automatically depending on what's happening around. Okay, so you can also zoom up to 8x as you can see here without losing much quality, which is quite impressive. Also the zoom is very fluid. Speaking of fluid stuff, the focus is fast, even if you're moving violently from one side to the other, and fast. And now let's analyze the selfie portion of the experience. Press this virtual button here, and now you can see the options. We got flash options, we got modes, auto and dual, we got settings like HDR, on, off or auto. We got the resolution, we can film in Full HD in selfie mode. We also have the aspect ratio, voice command, special voice commands by holding that fist or not. Then there's also another bunch of options here. You can switch between the cameras with a gesture and more here. Interval shot, burst shot, cheese shutter, panorama mode or dual mode, all of them available in this mode. There's also a beauty slider that you can use by swiping like this. Enough about the selfie camera, it's time to actually take a picture. I'm going to use the auto mode and take a beautiful photograph of the castle. Picture taking is quite fast. The level of detail is amazing. There is not one blurry part of this pic, even if you keep zooming in a lot. So let's try and see this tower here. amazing detail, and it's a tower that looks like this, so that's crazy. And also the colors are very good. When I say crazy, I mean crazy good, not crazy bad. It's time to go to the gallery. We have a huge gallery. We always abuse galleries and take too many shots. This time we have 174 pictures to brag about. Okay, so it was a hugely sunny day, and we did a bunch of inside shots first, and then we got outside. Very good colors indoors, and beware, there's food again and some lemonade, some food macros that were actually quite well done. Okay, and then we got outside. So it was a very sunny day with 30 plus degrees Celsius, which usually burns pictures, but not in the case of this phone. We got a detailed landscape shot. I've seen many phones that can take excellent macro shots, but in landscape they fail. Well, this one, you keep zooming in and still there's no blurriness, so nice landscape shot and very good colors. Excellent greens, as you can see, very good texture. First attempt at an HDR, worked out quite fine, and the first attempt at a macro. I have taken multiple shots of this little faucet with other phones I've tested recently, but this one, the LG G4, is the first phone to actually highlight the texture of the metal in this close-up shot. Okay, so let's go further and see other pictures we got here. Now it's time for a zoom test. So this is a picture of two swans far away, first level of zoom, and then another one, and then another one, which is pretty impressive. We zoom up to 8x and the quality remained pretty good. And then it's time to do the same thing to some ducks, again with very good quality in spite of having zoomed in a lot. Some more pictures here with a very crude green, and this is the panorama shot that is very detailed, especially thanks to a huge resolution of 21,568 over 2816, very crisp, and if you zoom in you'll see nothing is blurry here and everything is detailed, including these people walking around. So incredibly detailed panorama, so that's nice. We also pulled a selfie or two, but because of the sun, well, apparently the back camera can handle the sun, but the front camera will tend to burn the background. The face will come out okay, but the background is seriously burned up. The skin texture is okay and the level of detail is also good, but as you can see, these trees are pretty burnt up. At least the selfie shot of the face came out okay. Some more shots here. This is a very sunny area and still the pictures did not get burned. We even took shots with the sun in front of us, and this is a macro that came out just fine. Incredible detail here. You can really feel the texture of this plasticky rubbery thing. A playground for children filled with colored, realistic colors. These are one of the most realistic colors I've seen on any smartphone, older or modern, which is quite a thing to say on such a sunny day and on a handset that doesn't cost a huge amount. More shots here, including that crude green again, some flags, so we can play with the colors here. We alternated between aspect ratios, 4:3 or 16:9, just to change it up a bit and mix it up. Here we're in the shade after a long period in the sun. This time we tried out in the shade. Excellent colors again, some nifty close-ups with glossy toys. And then we get a very nice HDR shot. So this is a horse toy in the dark, and then we apply HDR, and as you can see, it doesn't only highlight the head of the horse, but also highlights, check this out, this area here, it highlights the shadow and makes it clearer, which is a very fine thing. More colors, crisp images, excellent white balance and exposure, and we have arrived to the usual close-ups of flowers. Excellent ones, as you can see, huge level of detail. The slightest drop of water and texture of flower is caught here. There's actually nothing to object about when it comes to this camera, and you can play around with the focus and focus for something in the foreground or the background, however you please. And speaking of reds, usually when it's a sunny day and we photograph roses, they come out hugely oversaturated. In this case, they're decently saturated and the red is actually realistic for once. Of course, this screen doesn't do justice to the pictures. You have to see them in a full gallery on gsn1.com and enjoy them, because we do have a lot of pictures and once again excellent colors and excellent details. Nice focus and Again, another shot. We are clearly above the predecessor, the LG G3, and also above the HTC One M9 that we tested recently. I would have to say we're pretty much above the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus. And when it comes to colors and how realistic they are, we even beat the Galaxy S6, but only in that area. And then the night came. We started taking shots at night, and the experience was surprisingly bright and clear. The colors are excellent. The halos of the streetlights are very small, which is a good thing. Some of the shots are blurry or yellowish, but it's not as bad as the HTC One M9 that was a catastrophe in this area. Also, if you put the shutter on 30 seconds, adjust the proper ISO and use a tripod, you can turn any nighttime shot into daytime. It will become that bright. Once again, these are taken at night, deep dark night, and yet they're very clear, the colors are excellent, and the image is crisp even if you zoom in a lot, which tells us a lot about the aperture of the camera, which is actually useful during the nighttime. Be sure to check out the gallery, and by the way, this is at about 1 or 2 AM at night. It was total pitch black here, and using the 30-second shutter, or better said, we set up the shutter on 8 seconds, the ISO to 800, and we achieved this. It was pitch black and we pulled it out of the darkness to light, and this shot was the result. Check it out. Once again, shutter 8 seconds, ISO 800, and from pitch black to this, I would have to say it's very impressive. We even did a similar shot with the iPhone 6 Plus and nothing came out. Overall, I have to say that this camera is 10% to 20% better than any rival on the market right now when it comes to photo taking. It's sort of a landmark, especially at night and in low light conditions. And now it's time to discuss the videos. To make it easier, I'm going to select videos from here, go to camera, and first things first, you can film in 4K, Full HD at 30 frames per second, slow-mo 720p 120 frames per second, and the 4K filming has a 30 megapixel bitrate, while the Full HD filming 17 megapixel bitrate. So let's start off with video number 1. It's Full HD. And let's try that again. Turn down the volume a bit, set it from the start, and here we go. The quality is okay, but not better than that. The stabilization was a bit underwhelming here. The image was a bit burnt because of the sun, but the colors were pretty good. And when we started zooming in to check out the quality of the details, well, detail loss happened pretty fast. And then we got the second video. It's all about stabilization here. We're climbing some stairs. This is the same treatment that we gave the iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus, and a few other phones to test their stabilization, and I have to say the device is not as steady as I expected. It's below the iPhone 6 Plus. At least we don't have any focus loss while all this jiggling is happening. The image does get a little bit curved every once in a while, but no focus loss. Anyway, below the stabilization of the iPhone 6 Plus. The third video is 4K, fantastic colors and quality, perfect exposure and colors, good details, and even when zooming in, everything remains crisp. I have to say that the bitrate of 30 megapixel is not impressive. I've seen other phones filming in 4K with a 50 megapixel bitrate, so that's impressive. Okay, and then there's yet another video, which is the slow motion one. Nothing we haven't seen before. Nowadays you can even go to 240 frames per second if I'm not mistaken. And then we played with some colors in this video. Excellent colors. Okay, acoustics, you can actually hear the birds chirping. If you listen closely, they cover up the traffic. And once again, very good colors, crisp image, and sadly, I noticed some focus loss, especially when also experiencing a frame change or an exposure change, which is not very good. Another video is this one here. Okay, quality, a bit burned, nothing to complain here. The colors are pretty good. And finally, we got this video here in full sun. Sadly, focus loss happens a few times here. The panning curves the image a bit. And overall, when we draw the line, as far as the filming is concerned, we are below the LG G Flex 2 by about 10%. And then we also took some videos at night. Good colors and clarity. Still, it may be bright, it may be reasonably crisp for nighttime, but it feels a bit like 720p instead of 1080p. Once again, I have to appreciate the colors and the brightness. And then the last video, also at night. It's amazing how well the focus is kept while this tram is moving fast. Good acoustics, good focus, good colors and good clarity, but a bit shaky image. I am slightly underwhelmed by the video capture, and when I keep talking about shakiness, is not what you see on this screen, it's the fact when I'm watching these videos on my desktop, the image feels like it's doing something like this, like I'm on a boat, which is what I would call shaky, and it's a bit of a problem. I remember taking videos at a concert with the LG G3, and that was very impressive. Well, this is a bit less impressive than the LG G3's video camera at night. And also the videos are below the quality of the Galaxy S6, obviously. Overall, if we judge it by combining the photo taking and video taking, I have to say it's an excellent camera. The video needs a bit more work, it's still good but not stellar. And I have to say that we got the best low light capture in 2015 so far with the LG G4, and nothing to object about if you're talking about pictures, but videos need a bit of work. And if you're planning on doing some editing, these are the options you get: auto, crop, rotate, styles, tune image, vintage, center focus, tilt shift and frames. And now we're done with the camera. Remember, best low light phone, even beats the Galaxy S6. And now I want to talk about performance, starting with temperature. So after playing the game Riptide GP2 for 15 minutes, we achieved 39.8 degrees Celsius, which means we're close to overheating, but there is no overheating here, which is probably thanks to that Snapdragon 808 processor. LG was wise not to use the Snapdragon 810 that recently had another problem with the Xperia Z4. And yet, after a very hot day of taking pictures in the sun, the handset got to a temperature of 44 degrees Celsius, which I would say is okay considering it was a 35 degrees Celsius day outside. Now let's have a look at the web browser. This is it, the stock web browser of the phone. And now let's check out gsmdom.com, which loaded reasonably fast. It's pretty smooth scrolling. We also have pinch to zoom here, and this is what the website looks like in landscape mode. Okay, and about the virtual keyboard, this is it. It's pretty well spaced, reminds me of the experience from the LG G Flex 2. We got a numeric row here, and we got several extra options here like voice commands, even a bit of handwriting, and even a clip tray that will allow you to clip various content that you saved in other places. As far as the telephony aspect goes, the dialer is clearly influenced by material design, strongly influenced, and we got features like speed dial, one-handed operation, Q slide, and call settings, including a few functions like the ability to suppress noise and enhance voice clarity, which is kind of cool if you ask me. Actually, this works. While chatting on the phone, I experienced a very loud call, good signal, excellent voice clarity, so nothing to object about here. Now it's time to analyze the benchmarks. I decided to compare the LG G4 to the LG G3 and the Galaxy S6, and also the G Flex 2 plus the HTC One M9. This is a battle between the Snapdragon 808 on this device with the Snapdragon 801 from the G3, the Exynos 7420 from the Galaxy S6, and the Snapdragon 810 from the G Flex 2 and HTC One M9. So let's compare benchmarks, starting off with Quadrant. In Quadrant we had a score of 17,697, which was strangely beaten by the LG G3 with 22,235. Also the Galaxy S6 scored a huge 36,000, and the LG G Flex 2 had 26,812. Meanwhile, HTC One M9 28,390, also in Quadrant. In Antutu, the score was pretty good, I would say, 48,198, we beat the LG G3 that had 35,000, and we got beaten by the Galaxy S6 that had 68,000. Meanwhile, the G Flex 2 was close with 47,000, and the HTC One M9 beat us with 52,000. Nenamark is also here with a very good score of 60.1 frames per second. We beat the G3 and it's 59.9 frames per second. We beat the Galaxy S6 and it's 59.4 frames per second. And we beat the G Flex 2 and it's 58 frames per second. Finally, we also beat the HTC One M9, barely, since it scored 59.9 frames per second. Now it's time for Velamo, and in the HTML5 test we scored in Chrome 3652, beating the LG G3 that had 2417 but scoring below the Galaxy S6 and it's 5462 points, while the G Flex 2 scored 4353 and the HTC One M9 2971. Next up, let's see other benchmarks such as 3D Mark. In the iStorm Unlimited test we had 18,228. We beat the G3 by about 2,000 points. We were below the Galaxy S6 by about 4,000 points, and we also managed to be below the LG G Flex 2 that scored 21,880 points. Also, HTC One M9 scored 21,517 points. And now we proceed to Geekbench 3. Here we scored 1138 in the single core test and 2996 in the multi-core test. In the same test, LG G3 scored 960 over 2333. Meanwhile, Galaxy S6 1477, 5077, a very impressive score. The LG G Flex 2 1012 over 3016, so it almost beat us. HTC One M9 1007 and 3843. Some of these models can only win the multi-core battle in front of the G4, like the G Flex 2 and HTC One M9. Next up, we got here the GFX bench test. We did the regular GFX that wielded 1927 frames, and we also did the newer version of this test that wielded 32 frames per second in the same T-Rex off-screen 1080p test. The G3 had 27.3 frames per second, the Galaxy S6 46 frames per second, and the G Flex 2 43 frames per second. HTC One M9 was close to us with 26 frames per second, but below us, so at least we beat that model. Next up, there should be the speed test, which is here. Pretty good result, 22 mega per second in download and 22 in upload via Wi-Fi. Pretty high ping though. In the meantime, the G3 had 20 and 21 mega per second, the Galaxy S6 21 and 20, and the G Flex 2 20 and 20. Finally, HTC One M9 registered 29 and 27, which is a very impressive result and beat all the other models. In Browser Mark, we scored 2093 points, beating the G3 that had 1187, and also registering a lower score than the Galaxy S6 and it's 2724, while the G Flex 2 had 1807 and the HTC One M9 1658, so we're not doing that bad. Finally, SunSpider 517, here the lower is the better. The G3 had 652, Galaxy S6 528, and the LG G Flex 2 691. Finally, HTC One M9 1174, so basically lost that battle. And our very last result is the Basemark SX benchmark, and in the medium quality test we scored 25,188. We don't have the result for the LG G3, but the Galaxy S6 was close with 26,863 points. And in the meantime, the G Flex 2 scored 27,170 points. Finally, HTC One M9 17,891, so we managed to beat the HTC One M9. Overall, we managed to win only 2 out of the 11 benchmarks in front of all the phones. We won 10 out of 11 in front of the G3. We won 6 out of 11 in front of the HTC One M9, also 6 in front of the G Flex 2, and 3 out of 11 in front of the Galaxy S6. Obviously, this interface doesn't know the word lag. There's no such problem here, no matter what you're doing. It's a pretty much future-proof phone. For about, let's say, 2 or 3 years, you can play any game on it, run any app without a hassle. And obviously, you can play games without a problem. Games like Riptide GP2, our usual benchmark title. We put the graphics all the way to the top, 3D graphics, nice lighting and speed effects, and here we go. tilt control, obviously. Nice looking water, everything you'd expect from a flagship. I think it's about time that they launched the Riptide GP3, because this game has been out for a while now and we are really in need of a new benchmark game. Of course, they also have Beach Buggy Blitz, if I'm not mistaken, also a very good benchmark game, but we need maybe something new, although this is still a very good benchmark game. Okay, you saw it running, no lag, no problem, excellent water effects, lighting effects, shadows and all that. It's time to talk about the software. So let's see what we're dealing with here first. And if we go into the software info area, you will see that we're running Android 5.1 Lollipop with the LG UX 4.0 on top. The experience hasn't changed very much from the LG G Flex 2 that we tested a few months ago, and the material design is felt more this time, if you ask me. I find the nuances of the screen a bit aggressive, they're a bit too neon for my taste, they're too bright and colorful. Just look at the colors used for this widget, or even for this one, everything feels simply too shiny and too glossy, at least for my eyes. There's too much cyan used throughout the interface, too bright and too colorful. Anyway, let's have a look at the widgets. These are the widgets offered here. As I complained before, too much cyan and too much gloss and brightness. And of course we have a ton of stock widgets, not only those from LG. Other than that, if you press the recents button, you will see the multitasking area with this carousel. You can close up like this, you can close all the apps if you want by pressing clear all, or you can trigger dual window here. Dual window will help you use two apps at the same time, so if you want to use the internet and YouTube, for example, you can do it. We have two apps on the screen at the same time. I can do a bit of web browsing while I'm also checking out YouTube. And as far as I know, you can also drag content from one window to the other. So for example, if I want to search something here, I can go here, hopefully this works, and drag maybe a bit of text. Let's try it again. Here, yes, it worked. So I drag text from this window to this window, and that's multitasking with dual windows. Other than that, we got the drop down area that feels very familiar if you've seen an LG G phone for the past years. We got quick settings, especially focused on connectivity. We got a brightness slider, we got the connectivity slider, and obviously we got the notifications available here. And then we have a better look at the quick settings. We got Quick Memo Plus, that's a familiar face we've seen before. Basically it allows you to write stuff on the screen, straight on the screen. So if you're in a map, for example, you can sketch out some trajectories for people to perform where they're trying to reach you. You can also insert text, go to the main app, create a screenshot instantly, and change the size of your pen and the type of tip and also the color to create a pretty strong note. Other than that, we got connectivity options, data, Bluetooth, sync, NFC, flashlight, Q-slide, and you can edit these shortcuts obviously. Q-slide will trigger a list of apps that can be used at the same time on the screen in a minimized version. So basically they're floating apps and you can only use two at a time. If you try to add a third one, well, you cannot use it. Let's try maybe calendar. The maximum number of windows has been already opened, so 2 of them is the maximum. And then we get to the settings area where we can have a look here. So networks is a pretty straightforward affair. In the sound section, you can actually set up the vibration strength, which is kind of cool. We also have sound vibration, interruption options, and then we go to the display that we already saw, and then to the general section that we didn't dissect yet. We got language and input, accounts and sync, location, cloud, and we also have something called users. You can actually add another user that will get his very own play account and home screens, so that's cool. There's also options for the shortcut key. You can associate features to your back volume buttons, and you can take a quick shot, a photo, when the app opens using a key. Then we got security options like those related to encryptions and app install. And then we got something called smart settings that have to do with automation. Basically, when you're at home, the profile will be able to change automatically to sound or no sound if you want. When you're away from home, you can keep the Bluetooth on or off. These things will happen automatically without your control if you set them up from smart settings. Such automation was available a few years ago on Motorola devices, so it doesn't quite impress me, but it's useful to have, especially if you want to play with this option like plug earphones and instantly open music. Speaking of which, you can listen to music both on the plugged earphones and on Bluetooth ones, so two people can listen to music at the same time, one using Bluetooth, one using regular headphones. And further, we got the quick circle case options and a selection of apps you can open up in that circular area, dual window options like auto open for links or email attachments, date and time storage, smart cleaning that frees up space by cleaning temporary files. Then we got apps, and then we got backup and reset and about phone, and that's pretty much it. And now we go to the leftmost home screen. That's called a smart bulletin, and it's a collection of data. The LG G3 also had it, but in a more minimal version, and the LG G Flex 2 helped it evolve a bit. Now we got LG Health here, we got the calendar, we got music, smart settings, quick remote, and smart tips. So let's analyze them one by one. So LG G Health has changed practically nothing from the LG G Flex 2. If you've seen the LG G Flex 2, you know what to expect. We got the step counter, we got the calorie counter, we got the tracker for your fitness sessions. You select your exercise and you start recording your calories, pace, speed, distance, and even a track of your run or walk or cycling on the map. That's basically it. You can record exercise type once again. You can set a profile and goal with a certain amount of kilos, ideal weight. You can connect accessories like thermometer, blood pressure monitor or scale, and sync your profile. It's a very straightforward app. It's nothing like the S Health from Samsung that has much more statuses like oxygen saturation, pulse, like your sleep pattern, like the meals you eat. Well, this one doesn't. It's much simpler, and some people may prefer it that way. Then there is calendar, as I said, music, and smart settings that you've seen before, plus quick remote and smart tips that will teach you how to use the device. This is Smart Notice. The widget you can see here is partially the one with the weather and the time and date, and also this bit here will tell you basically advices on how to behave, on how to use the device. These are the Smart Notice settings. You can see notifications as cards. You get notifications for favorite contacts, for birthdays, new contacts, for smart cleaning. You'll see here recommendations on how to dress. You'll be let know if it's someone's birthday, if you should delete a file, if you should reduce battery drain, if you should exercise more or less. You can get suggestions to look at pictures from 1 year ago and other cool stuff. Everything is here in this area. It's called Smart Notice and lets you know how to behave every day, like a friend giving you an advice. If you double tap the screen while it's in standby mode, you can obviously activate it, and you can do the same to close it if you feel lazy and won't press the back on off button. And now I want to show you something interesting here that I forgot to show you before in the display area. So if you go to the home touch buttons and press button combination, you can actually add more buttons, ones for notification, quick memo, Q slide, and dual window if you feel the need to have them displayed on the screen. Okay, and one more thing, since I was playing with the lock screen before, there's here something called glance view. We had it on the G Flex 2. This time you can gently swipe down from the top of the screen and you can see the time. However, as you can see, the whole screen lit up, not just the upper part, which basically defeats the purpose of not using up too much energy. Anyway, it's time to check out the applications, and I'm happy to inform you there is not much bloatware here, actually no bloatware at all. So let's start with the Google pack. We got Gmail, Google+, Play Music, Books, Newsstand and Games, Drive, Photos, Hangouts, and Docs, Sheets and Slides. Then we got the calendar with a clearly material design feeling, and then comes the camera, Set Broadcast, Chrome, a clock, also with pretty much material design. Then we got Contacts, Email, File Manager, looking familiar if you've seen that smart cleaner before, Gallery, Internet, LG Backup, Maps, of course Google Maps, looking hot as usual on its Quad HD screen. And then we've got messaging, music, phone, Play Store, settings, tasks, your usual task creator with reminders included. And then we got voice recorder, YouTube, calculator, FM radio, remote call service, LG Smart World, that sadly is not available in its native version in my region. and its applications are not very impressive even compared to Samsung's own App Store, for example. We also got LG's quick remote that we're familiar with. It allows you to control a variety of appliances. You can control a TV set, a set-top box, air conditioner, a projector, and other things like that. And then we got Quick Memo Plus. It's certainly no Super Note from ASUS and certainly no S Note from Samsung, but it does its job, allows you to take notes, to change the type of font, underline, bold, italic. You can change the alignment. You can also make all sorts of selections related to the tip of the pen you're using, size, transparency, color. You can delete stuff, you can clip stuff, you can insert stuff. So basically your multimedia note-taking application is here. Once again, it may not be Super Note or S Note, but it does its job fine. And then we got weather, looking very minimalistic. We got LG Health that we're already familiar with. And finally VoiceMate that attempts to be an assistant. So let's try it out. What's the weather like? So it's rather robotic and not very slow. This is the compliment I can give it. I cannot call it fast, I would call it not very slow. Who was Steve Jobs? It cannot answer directly, it sends us to good old Google for that, so that's a minus. And now, schedule meeting for tomorrow at 3 p.m. Nope, so you just saw pretty much what it can do. It's not bad, at least as far as the speed goes, I'm happy with it. So overall, a nice looking interface, pretty minimalistic. Aside from the color hues, I'm happy with the way it looks. And now we're off to the verdict regarding the LG G4 that we got here. On the Pro side, we obviously have this beautiful leather, excellent texture, premium looking and unique among the modern smartphones. This phone has very good acoustics, both in speaker and headphones, a very good display as well. It's bright, it has hugely realistic colors, and also one of the best low light cameras at the back we've seen so far. This is the best behaving camera in low light this year, so that's impressive. It also produces realistic colors at day and at night. If you're looking for the most realistic phone when it comes to screen and camera, this is pretty much it. There's no bloatware on board, which is also a plus. Nice manual camera modes are included. It has a very nice feel in the user's hand, and it's more affordable than other flagships currently available. Now the cons, we can not only have pros here, we also have to have cons. I have a feeling that the leather is very easy to stain with ink, food, and who knows what else. The battery could be a bit better. I'm not saying it's bad, but when I look at phones that have 10, 11 or 12 hours of battery life, I want more from this little fellow. Also, the lack of extra power saving options is a bit of a bummer here. The video capture may be decent or even good, but it's below the photo capture and it has to be on par with the picture taking, otherwise it defeats the purpose of having such a good camera. Anyway, speaking of photos, I find the selfie camera to be a bit underwhelming compared to my expectations. And finally, the UI's color choices are a bit too bright and too neon for my tastes. And one last mention, the phone may be thicker and heavier than other flagships, and some people may want slimmer devices. We've seen companies making 5mm phones, so people may not be gunning for almost 10mm thick devices. It's time for the verdict here at gsmnon.com. We're dealing here with a phone that gets from us a 9.2 out of 10 for design. We also give it a 9.3 out of 10 for the hardware, and for the operating system and user interface a 9.5 out of 10. The final grade is 9.33 out of 10 here at gsmnon.com. It's a very well balanced phone. It's certainly a big jump from the LG G3, and it's basically a photographer's dream. Why? A realistic camera, realistic colors for the camera, also realistic colors on the screen, and this combo is excellent if you're taking photos on a regular basis. Couple that with the ability to take raw shots, and we got once again a photographer's phone. Also a bit of a phone that's future proof, doesn't have overheating, has a powerful CPU, can play many games for about 2 or 3 years or even more, excellent audio and screen, and the only downside may be the filming and maybe a bit, just a bit, the battery. It's slightly below the Galaxy S6, it's about 5% less impressive than the Galaxy S6 that nails the filming video capture down. So 9.33 out of 10 from gsm1.com. Bye bye.